Hello, Andy and Stu here. Welcome to the Boot Room. We're looking ahead to Ipswich Town's first away game of the season. They're off to Burton Albion at the Pirelli Stadium on Saturday. A draw at home to Morecambe on the opening day, followed by a loss to Newport in the Carabao Cup. Could really do with a win to get the season up and running, but it's always a tough test at the Pirelli, Stu. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, this is a tricky old fixture for Ipswich off the back of two disappointing results, if not decent performances for Ipswich. Getting that first win on the board will undoubtedly just calm a few little nerves. But Burton, a tough test. They finished last season like an absolute train from January onwards under Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Looked in real danger of getting relegated in the first half of the season. Ended up staying up quite comfortably, finished 16th. And they've got off to a decent start as well. A 1-0 win at Shrewsbury last weekend, and then a 1-1 draw with Oxford in the Cup on Wednesday night, followed by a penalty shootout defeat. Paul Cook was there to see that game in person. He's very impressed with Burton, knows this is going to be a tough test. So interested to see how Ipswich Town get on tomorrow.
Always tough. It was always tough at Burton, isn't it? But we say it's always tough. Ipswich's record there is perfect. Four games, 4 wins, but they've never been easy at all, have they? There was that opening day in League One where Luke Garbutt's goal settled the nerves. And then last season, Mark McGuinness, I think that game was incredibly scrappy, wasn't it, at times to win a really tight game. And I don't know about you, I can't really see beyond another tight one this time.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be a tight one. We'll get on to some predictions in a minute.
Okay, we'll get on to that. What about a team, Stu? We're still learning this Paul Cook squad. Paul Cook is still learning this squad. There are injuries to contend with. There are multiple players to be picked from in most of the, especially in the attacking positions. Are you going to take a little stab at this? Any idea where you think he might go with his options this weekend?
I'll give it a go. Paul's been very reluctant to share too much in terms of injury news. Doesn't want to show his hand, understandably. But one thing we do know is the formation. It's going to be 4-2-3-1 this season, and Paul Cook has made it clear that he's not going to worry too much tactically about the opposition. This is the way we play. This is the way we're going to work on it. So using that shape, I think it will go back mainly to what we saw in the game against Morecambe last weekend before the 10 changes in the Cup. So that will be Hladky back in goal, Vincent Young back at right back. Penny, I think, will continue at left back. Hayden Coulson obviously signed on Monday, but it sounds like he needs a bit of time to get up to speed. Struggled a little bit with COVID recently, so don't think he'll be quite ready. Wolfenden has to play again at centre-half. He was the one player that kept his place on Tuesday night because they're short of numbers there at the moment. And then the question is who plays alongside him. George Edmondson doesn't sound like he's ready to go yet. He signed with an injury. Toto Enciala, hamstring injury last weekend, came off. He's not going to be ready for a few weeks. I think Janoy Donasian might get the nod again at centre-half. I thought he was pretty flawless when he came on against Morecambe last weekend. Corey Ndaba did fine against Newport, but Janoy would be the more experienced option. So I'll go with him. The two sitters, Evans, Harper, guaranteed. They've played well so far. And then it gets interesting at the top end of the pitch, doesn't it? Burns, you would imagine, will be on the right. Piggott has to play. But then it's a question of whether Piggott's your 9 or whether plays a little bit deeper and he's the link man. And maybe Macaulay Bond's done enough off the bench scoring against Morecambe. I thought he was a handful against Newport. So could we see sort of Bond off the shoulder and Piggott as the link man behind? Maybe. You've got to get Scott Fraser back in there as well. I'm not a massive fan of him on the left. I think he's better as a 10. But if it is that Piggott, Bond front two, you would have to play Fraser on the left. The alternative is it's Piggott up top, Fraser in behind. And then maybe a Louis Barry or a Mando Dobra on the left. Both of those were quite lively in midweek. What do you reckon, Andy?
I like the sound. I like the sound of getting Macaulay Bonne in this team. He had one touch of the ball against Morecambe and scored with it, obviously on a huge high after that. But he was a real handful, wasn't he, against Newport? He was on the end of everything. He's big, he's strong, he moves well, he works hard. I quite like your little suggestion there of maybe putting Piggott just off him and ride the hot hand, ride Macaulay Bonne and see if he can get you those goals. Kyle Edwards is an interesting one. He's going to be in the squad, isn't he? But you got to think probably only the bench at this stage, given that he only signed on earlier this week.
Yeah, I hadn't even mentioned him there. He's another one that's just signed. Paul Cook was at pains to say today he will not rush players. He's never been a manager that either rushes new signings or players that are carrying knocks or injuries. And he seems to fall in that camp. He's available, Kyle Edwards, and maybe is more match fit than others because he's had a couple of decent trials throughout the summer. I think he's played 4 pre-season games, 3 of them on trial at Reading, 1 of them on trial at Bournemouth. So he should be relatively up to speed. So I'm sure he will be involved at some point, more likely off the bench, I would imagine. But who else is there that has signed? I'm losing track now of others. Edmondson's not ready. Aluko we haven't mentioned as well. I thought he looked a bit rusty on Tuesday night. I don't think he's done enough to get into this starting 11 just yet.
I think he's also probably struggling to have done enough to make the bench, such as the strength of this Ipswich squad at the moment. That's probably no slight on Sonny Aluko, but that the attacking options are becoming almost too plentiful for Cook, aren't they? With Chaplin, Fraser, Wes Burns, we've not really mentioned, Dobra.
Got Burns in that team. Chaplin I hadn't mentioned. I thought he was quite quiet against Morecambe on his debut, playing as that sort of number 10 off Piggott. That combination didn't really get going last weekend. It's one game. Connor Chaplin is a good player who played a lot of games for a Barnsley side that finished in the Championship playoffs last season. But I haven't got him in that starting 11 at the moment. And as you say, that these are the sort of decisions now that Paul Cook's having to make. He's probably got 10 players going into 4 starting positions at that top end of the pitch. Yeah, not only selecting the starting 11, but selecting the ones that are on the bench is going to be a problem for him going forwards as well. But what a nice selection headache to have.
Absolutely. Good problems to have. So that leads us on to the final part of the boot room, Stu, which is the predictions section. Are Town going to get their season up and running with a win this weekend, or are they going to have to wait another few days?
I've got them down for a score draw. I think this is a team from the 2 performances we've seen so far. This is a team that I will back to score goals more often than not. I know they didn't against Newport in midweek, but my word, they knocked on the door, 25 attempts on goal. Play like that and the goals and the results will come. But Burton, as we said right at the very start, I think they're a team, a stable League One side that are on the up under Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. So for that reason, a 1-1 draw on the win might have to wait.
I've been worried about this game since the fixtures came out, but it's got to Friday, and whenever it gets to Friday, I always suddenly get this little shot of confidence from somewhere. I did have 1-1 written down, but the more I'm thinking about this, the more I actually fancy them to maybe nick this 2-1. I don't think they're going to blow anybody away this weekend. I think it's going to be a real attritional, tough game, but I'm going to predict Ipswich to come out the other end of this one with a 2-1 victory, possibly with a late one.